Okay, so we're all here today. Let's get started. Well, I don't have a whole lot to tell you, so we'll end up using a lot of the time as filler, and the whole point is basically to convince you of just one thing, okay? And that is that you really don't need a teacher to teach you anything. Okay, now this is a paradox. What you need is someone to convince you that within you is all the answers that you need. That by going inside yourself and using your mind properly, you can find the solutions to each of your challenges and much more. And that much more is where my expertise is in. So we have the basics to go over maybe and all of that. But again, let me reiterate, I don't have anything to teach you. I'm here through this period of time to sort of convince you that you are the one who has all the answers. You are the authority. You are the one that is creating your reality. And I can explain in detail all of this. Plus, this is the neat part, I was as skeptical as a lot of you may be. If some of you were just about ready to be convinced, what I've already said is enough for you to now be to the point where you can do it. If you're at another point where this sounds sort of unbelievable, and as we go along today, more and more of what I say sounds sort of unbelievable, then don't worry. It took me years to become convinced because I myself believe a lot in rationality and repeatability and skepticism, and I don't want to give any wrong information to anybody. I don't want to lead anybody down the wrong path. So all of this that I'm going to be teaching and talking about, I have experience so that at least I know that one person can do it. And the truth is, if one person can do it, then I know many, many other people can. I'm not special other than that we are all unique and special. And that in itself is also so wonderful. So let's figure out, I think I'm going to end the talk to start with. So that is the end of the talk. I hope that you enjoyed it. And the rest of it, we will basically be doing examples, stories, question and answers, whatever we need to do in order to help any of you understand the whole point of what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's go in that direction. How about this? Okay, so basically what I'm going to be talking about is reality creation. At some point, you reach the realization that you were here on Earth and your mind is basically in control of what you do, how you behave, and your choices that you're going to make. However, it is very interesting what happened before that stage, and it's even more interesting that most of us don't have very clear memories of the first few years of our life after we are born. So all of these are, in a way, clues. I started this path by studying anomalies, and I started very young. Even at the age of 5, I had a strong desire to learn to become invisible, and have since realized that, yeah, I might be able to become invisible, but that's only part of it. The whole thing is, if I become invisible, then where do I go? So the challenges, desires, or questions that we have, shall we say, the ability to create more probabilities for us to explore, and it actually becomes endless. So what I'm saying is the fact that I had such a strong desire to learn to become invisible, again, the same thing sort of happened as when I realized I couldn't even remember being born. Say I did finally learn to become invisible, well, it usually implies that I would travel to another space, which what we would maybe call another dimension. And in that sense, you could say that I was being either transported or born in that reality. So that's a repeat in a way, because here I was just focusing on the exit, the invisibility part, and forgot to think about, shall we say, the transition or birth into another dimension. And to carry that a little bit farther, I'm not talking about dying. I want to learn to do all of this while I'm alive. I realize again that very few people on the earth do this, as far as consciously make their bodies disappear and are able to direct it and change dimensions at will. However, it is not unheard of, and I even know of an example I read about. Brad Steiger wrote about it back in, I don't know, I was in the 70s. I read his book, so he had recounted a lecture that had been put on by a person who was lecturing in front of a group of people, and he disappeared while he was standing in front of the entire group of people for a couple minutes. And of course it caused a lot of consternation, and he actually reappeared in one of the chairs that was on the stage, and was surrounded, for basically people concerned for what happened in his health. And he did say it felt like he was having a heart attack, and I did not get any of the details of what happened in between, nor I don't know much more than that aspect of the story, but that was an observed example of it occurring. Now, since then, I have learned that, yes, the transition does feel like you're dying. All you have to do is wait during that period. The important thing is don't give in to mental or physical fear. Basically, any time, okay? You can be fearful and use that as an indicator when you're doing some of these deep explorations and just choose to stop what you're doing. Because there are some things that all of this gets into exploring what we would consider the unknown, and that being, we're sort of like in kindergarten, just beginning to learn how to, shall we say, leave the planet using our mind rather than leave the planet using spaceships. And so once you start doing that, you have to learn some of the basic inner laws of the inner universe, and this is the part where maybe my talk or my teaching or my experiences or examples or tidbits of information or secrets or whatever it is you want to call it can eventually maybe convince you that about my opening statement, that you yourself have all the answers inside of you. It's simply that you need to change your belief so that you believe that you have all the answers, and then you could start your own personal journey on your own. So maybe we ought to go in the direction of learning how to change your beliefs. And that is one of the basics. There are a couple other basics I'll mention. We have to sort of break out of our cultural conditioning in order for us to reach our full potential here on Earth. And that is, we have accepted beliefs. Sometimes they were given to us by our parents, other times from TV, movies, on and on and on. And we sort of accepted them without really examining them. So we need to learn to examine not only the contents of our mind, but also each thought that we have, and monitor it and start paying attention to how we are programming ourselves. In addition to that, then we have to basically reprogram what would be beliefs that we have that are hindering, in a way, some of the progress or desires that we have in order to move in that direction. So everything has a purpose. Everybody is in the right place at the right time, and don't have to worry about that. Everybody here, hearing my words, this is not a coincidence. You're here because you're ready for this information. So let's focus on how to change a belief, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so changing your beliefs, at first you may say, well, why would I want to do that? And if that's the case, there are actually people who don't need any of this information that I'm giving out, that naturally understand what is happening. At some point in their life, they awaken, shall we say, and they have been able to go on their own and figure all this out. Myself, I needed more direction. I had always been hoping for a mentor of some type to help me along the way, and that, other than my parents, more like a shaman or guru or something, that priest, religious leader, someone with some sort of inner knowledge of the universe in order to help me understand on a deeper level where I am, what is all this, where am I going, what does it mean, and that never did materialize. So that forced me to do all of this research and studying on my own, which in a way, reading other materials, those became my mentors, the other ideas that I picked up. But once you accept someone else's idea, it alters a little bit because of our own personality, and you can claim it as your own. I do like to give sources due where they belong, and I do believe in intellectual property and honest communication and many things of high level of integrity. I may not cite all my sources tonight as I speak. However, just like anyone else, a lot of it has been put together from my own thinking and also my own experiences and stimulated by reading ideas of other people. Now, that also is another clue right there. To understand, shall we say, reality, and you could call it whatever you want. All that is God, the Creator, or if you're atheist, that does imply faith in no Creator. This even works for anybody. The point of where I'm going is the only way to gain knowledge, personal knowledge, is through a living connection, okay? And that can be yourself or other people, or other animals or nature, anything that's alive. And again, that's a whole nother aspect that's interesting. Actually, everything is alive. And then as you gain that information, you sort of transmute it, transform it, and the task is to try to take the knowledge that you are beginning to understand and be able to put it into words. And then if you reach the age or the point where you can at any point teach that knowledge, then you have an understanding of the concept. And that would be called wisdom. And just so you know, a lot of the definitions that I read in the dictionary, they're inadequate. Anytime I need to, I will refine and use discernment and create more specific definitions in order for me to proceed farther down my path that I'm going. All right, with all that said, how do we change a belief? Again, before I start, I want to say most people focus on problems, okay? And I don't know if you've noticed, but it tends to be a perceptual thing that if you're looking at, say, a tree, you may notice some parts of it that are bare or dying or brown-leafed, and focus on that more than the entire structure that is alive and green and growing. And not only a tree, but anything, we have a tendency to, shall you say, you know, the perfect example, if you take a test, you get 99 of the questions right, one of them wrong. For some reason, we focus on the wrong answer, and this carries through in almost all our perceptions. All right. Why I am saying that is that's one of the first things that is unnecessary and that we can use to understand ourselves. So with that said, a lot of people tend to think they have problems where they really may not be problems, whether it be weight gain or how they look or talk or interact with people, or whether they're liked or lonely, or relationships, and on and on and on and on. In actuality, first of all, I'm just going to give a blanket statement to help everyone, and that is, if you focus more on the good qualities, positive qualities, the green leaves on the tree, so to speak, then that is going to accentuate that aspect, and you're going to see more green leaves. You see, I just gave you a clue there. I hope something clicked. And that is this: if you focus on the one wrong answer, then that's how you're going to be spending your time. If you focus on the 99 right answers, then you're going to be spending your time on that. And the truth is, we can either go through life being mad or focusing on, shall we say, quote, the wrong answers, unquote, or we can go through life and choose happiness and focus on the right answers. With that said, that could eliminate a lot of your, quote, problems, unquote, right there. Beyond that, if there are still some beliefs that you want to change, and you will find them as you examine the contents of your mind, then this is what to do. All right? It's basically a 3-step mental process with one action. Okay? It's basically 3 5-minute periods each day, separated by a few hours in between, and then one action each day. And this can take up to 30 days to change the belief, and that is because the old belief has actually manifested, and you're seeing it in your reality. And you may not even realize it, but we are creating our reality by our beliefs. So if you change the belief, then after a lag period of time, you'll begin to see the new belief emerge. The art is to not compare the two during the process. All right? The art is to understand that as the old belief fades away and the new belief gains strength and attention, there will be this time lag, and you have to allow that to occur. Okay, so I could use an example, but I'm just going to go into the specifics. So, the first 5-minute section of the day, you sit down and quietly, basically close your eyes, and you convince yourself that you're powerful. You do this by saying, my power is now. My moment of power is now. And if you think about it, that's true. There is no other time ever for us to do anything or change anything. So it's self-obvious, and yet we need to reiterate it and strengthen this, especially our belief in it. My ability and power and inexhaustible power and unimaginable abilities are right now. So, for 5 minutes, in any way possible. You use your imagination. You can use thoughts, phrases, anything you need. Pay attention to feelings. And you could change it all you want in order to, for 5 minutes, reiterate and convince yourself that your power is now. And in this case, I'll give you an example of how I do it. And I will say that over time, the more you do this, the faster it becomes and the less lag time there is between changing a belief and manifestation. Okay. So for me, I, of course, associate being a male power with energy, and so I like blue light, and I imagine coming from inside of me a sphere of blue light, and very powerful, very strong, very bright, and enlarging, okay? And it enlarges outside the skin of my body, and then it enlarges and fills the room, and I fill the blue light with wonderful, healing, beautiful qualities and energy and power, and then I imagine it expanding geographically, actually, through the whole earth, and then enveloping the earth, engulfing the earth, and continuing into space and on into the galaxy and on into the universe. And in my case, I imagine no end to the universe. So this is a process that, because of the limitation of 5 minutes, it's almost like I wonder how far I can send my mind in 360 degrees direction simultaneously, because it's fun. I like it, and it feels good. So make sure whatever you do follows that pattern, that it feels good and right to you, and reiterates that your power is now. My moment of power is now. That's the whole point of the first exercise. And then you're done, and you go about your business, you know. So if you're wondering, this is what it boils down to. Say it took 30 days for you to change a belief because it was a stubborn one, and you discovered that there were some others connected with it that you had to work on. That's a lot of time. 3 5-minute periods for 30 days plus one action, it can get a little bit tiring, and sometimes we don't carry through, and that's your choice. However,
powering off.
However, you'll find that it will take less and less time. You won't have to spend 3 5-minute sessions as you get better and better at this, which I'll go into later. Okay, now your second 5-minute session is where, by this time, you've stated your new belief in a succinct sentence, a statement that you can repeat to yourself over and over again. And you do this. You sit down for 5 minutes and you repeat the statement over and over again, and then simultaneously you use your imagination and whatever you want to in order to accentuate that this statement that you're talking and telling yourself, generally mentally and quiet, but you can say it out loud if you want, is occurring, and you understand it on many deep levels of what it'll mean. And then you're done. And then finally, the third session that you do later is where you actually perform hypnosis on yourself, and you tell yourself, I know what I'm doing, I know this is hypnosis, I can stop at any time. And basically, you know that what you are going to imagine is different than the way it is at the moment. So you take the fact that you know your moment of power is now, you take the statement of your new belief, you simply sit and concentrate for 5 minutes and use your imagination to imagine that this new belief has manifested in any way you want, using your imagination, pretending through a movie, a video, interactions with other people, thoughts that you have, feelings, and you create these. The whole point is to be very creative, and then after the 5 minutes, you stop and you get up and go about your way. And then the final aspect is sometime during the day, it could be any time in between these, you'll have an impulse, and it'll be related to this new belief. And the impulse will be, oh, why don't I do this? We'll follow through on that. Do one action as if your new belief has already occurred each day. And it doesn't matter that it be some huge action. It's simply the process, the intent that you are acting as if the new belief has occurred. And this will restructure your entire mental outlook, which I could go into detail as to how that all works, but this then will lead to the manifestation of your new belief. And that's basically all there is. I could take some questions now if you have them. Let's see how much of this you guys remember. Okay. Okay. So let's use as an example one that I think is, well, there's two very important beliefs to learn. And actually on top of that, there's three others that are very important to learn. And you can go the rest of your life, and I believe in an afterlife, so you could go forever if you understand these 5 beliefs. I've already mentioned one of them, okay? So what I'm going to do is actually go back and hit the heart of the matter, okay? And that is that most of us say we have problems, and with our self-talk, we reiterate those either through sarcastic remarks or cynical remarks that we think are humorous or trying to be clever, and don't really spend a whole lot of time in the opposite direction, being as positive as we are being, shall we say, negative. However, it is your choice how you want to live your life. I'm simply here to help you to learn how to change your beliefs so that you can, once again, remember the very beginning of all this. My whole purpose is simply to convince you that you are the authority that has all the answers within you. And so everything I'm saying now is sort of the fluff or the convincing part. Okay. So in this case, because of the way we've been culturally conditioned, we have a high level tendency to look outside ourselves for answers, okay? So that's where we're starting most of the time. And the entire civilization actually is structured that way. So what I am talking about actually would lead to, in a way, the next step of evolution, only it would be a conscious change. And we're going to do this. It's simply a matter of when. So that's another aspect that I'll hit on in just a little bit. But the first one is this. Do you trust yourself? Do you trust your inner self? And when I say inner self, in that case, what I'm talking about is we know that beyond our ego, deeper within us, we may call it, the subconscious, the id, whatever you want to. There is some aspect that is creating our body and maintaining our body. And it's not us. We don't tell ourselves to breathe. We don't tell our heart to pump. We don't tell ourselves to have the literally billion exchanges of molecules each moment. And you can say it's automatic if you want, but in actuality, this is the inner self that I'm talking about, and even more. The inner self not only is creating our body and maintaining it, it also is connected to a much deeper level of what I would call multidimensionality. And just as another little throw-in, from which we come, okay? So the question is, do you trust yourself? Now, the reason that's important is because the answer is no, most of us don't. And even though we could become convinced quite easily, we've just been conditioned not to. And one of the easiest ways to know whether you trust yourself is, do you automatically trust a stranger? And most of us would say no. You have to have a period of time where you get to know that person and blah, blah, blah. Well, the truth is, the reason you don't trust other people, whether it be a stranger or someone you know at various levels, is because you don't trust yourself. Now, that's one of those things that I told you, I may say, that sounds unbelievable, okay? And that's fine. This is going to depend on how much you want to take in, how open of a mind you have. And most important, like I said, none of this matters what happened to me, it's what happens to you. So if you take my ideas and turn them around, or don't use them, or use them until you experience them and then understand them and can teach them, that's all up to you. But I have taken great pains to verify that all of this is correct. So, the one belief that is very important, that eventually you will want to change, is to trust yourself. And I'm going to do a little side note, okay, to help you understand how this occurs. We've all heard about the pursuit of happiness. Well, those words sort of set us off in the wrong direction, because that means that you're looking for happiness outside yourself. Mostly that's how people interpret it. In actuality, happiness is a choice. It's a characteristic. Sometimes, even under the most horrible conditions, you can still marvel at many aspects of the moment that are occurring, even though the conditions are not favorable. And that is because the attention that you give is what you tend to focus on and exaggerate. I personally know this because I deal with very difficult situations. I'm a ICU trauma nurse, taking care of post-surgical gunshot wound patients, motor vehicle accident patients, and very tragic situations. And yet, in the whole process, have learned not only myself how to cope with this, but what to accentuate in order for each moment to be better and improve. Okay, so if you don't pursue happiness, but in actuality choose to be happiness, you can see where I'm going. The analogy is the reason we don't trust ourselves is because that's how we've been conditioned, okay? So therefore, you change your belief, and you change your belief to trust yourself. Now, the advantages are just immense. However, for me, it took decades, okay? And hopefully not for you it will, but when all this started, I did not want to lead people down the wrong path. That's what it boils down to. So I would take a long time before I would get to this point of being able to speak what I would consider good information that is helpful. And that's another thing that's connected with that. Before you can love somebody, you have to love yourself. Before you can trust somebody, you have to trust yourself. Before you can help somebody, you have to help yourself. I mean, all of this is somewhat an extension of you towards another person. We tend to project a lot. It works both ways, of course, again, because a lot of us focus on problems. At first, a lot of times we think about who else we could blame for our problems. And as you can guess what I'm going to say, that is yourself. Getting there and understanding that is one of the things that really is a stumbling block for a lot of people. But I'm just telling you that eventually you're going to have to trust yourself sometime, so why not start now, okay? What this does is it gives you the power back, and that's what you want. You want to be empowered. You want to be able to be the one to control your life. You want to be the one to create your life. You want to be the one to change things. You want to be the one to make your dreams come true. And that is done by you. And it is also not done by you if you carry beliefs within you that limit that. All right, that's one of the beliefs to change. Another one is, I live in a safe universe. Now, most of you will hear this and extend out and immediately go to the extremes and say, well, that's silly because of all of the negative, shall we say, programming that we are constantly bombarded with. And you can say, even some of you have experienced these negative experiences. However, if you are following some of my premises, I had just got done explaining that all of our problems are our own. We have to own our own problems. So even our negative experiences are created by us, although that may not be palatable it gives you the power back to change not only your future, and this will be another unbelievable statement, you do have the power right now to change the past. I could go into quantum mechanics and all of that, which they realize that there is no reason why the arrow of time has to go in the direction it is. And that is true. It not only goes forwards and backwards, it also goes inside, outside, and the full 360 that I used as my inner blue sphere expanding idea. Time is the same way. All time is now, time is simultaneous, and we are constantly drawing from probabilities and collapsing the wave function, and that is being done by our belief system. We are the observer. With that said, I'm not going to go into detail today on changing past events, but my point is this: you definitely have the ability to affect now. And that's a big deal, because as you'll soon realize, there is only now. Even in the future, when you get there, it's now. And I will just give you a hint. The past, when that was occurring, was now. Okay? So the point now is to live in a safe universe. Now, the best wording is, I live in a safe universe. And so that limits it to your universe. That will work. You will bring peace to yourself, and if all of us did that, then we would have peace on earth. Now, when you choose to believe I live in a safe universe, this will lead you to many other beliefs that you might have that don't quite coincide with that. And those are going to be some of these beliefs that I want you to change. So that's why I focused on how to change a belief, in order for you to understand now what you would need to do. Your first step of trusting yourself is going to lead you to trust what would be called intuition, the quiet inner voice, which, by the way, is the first voice that you hear when something is occurring to you, and usually your ego is the second louder one that generally disses it and says, no, I can't do that, because you're busy or you have many, many rationalizations. However, that first inclination is the one to at least take note of. You may not be able to act on it immediately. However, don't discard the information. You want to use it to your advantage. Impulses, if you get lucky, spontaneous illuminations are fabulous. Those connect you right up with the source, and then at that point, you know immediately. Knowledge can be passed on directly, bypassing words and rationality. And if that occurs to you, it's like you've taken a giant leapfrogged over many steps. Plus, it tends to have the effect that's most important, and that is decreasing self-importance, which, again, I can get to later. All right, so we're focused right now on I live in a safe universe. So you probably are going to have to do that belief changing process because of our cultural conditioning. And then as that occurs, you'll have literally thousands of examples if you watch the news and stuff like that, that doesn't seem like I live in a safe universe. However, I want you to understand that your personal environment is separate from what you're seeing on TV. Your personal environment is separate from the stories you hear even from me or other people. Your personal environment is the environment I'm talking about when you say, I live in a safe universe. And you can create that. If you need to, you can pretend it's a bubble that expands and eventually envelops the earth also, and the universe. The point being, you live in a safe universe. And once you change that belief, then that will manifest. Okay. What are the other three? Well, I said I'd already named one of them, and that is or let's put it this way, the present moment is my moment of power. The present is my moment of power. Or my moment of power is now. However you want to look at it, that is another belief that's very advantageous. Okay. Sort of self-obvious once I state it, yet extremely important to not only believe it, spend time pondering it, understand it, use it, experience it. And remember, once that gets to that process, it becomes wisdom, and you can teach it at any time. Okay, what's another one? All right, let's see. This one is a real key to be able to progress spiritually and psychically. And that this statement is, I have no limits. Or you can say, there are no limits to myself. Or you can say, I am limitless. Or you can say, there are no boundaries to the limits of myself. And all of these are the same thing, worded in whatever is best for you to understand. And the point is this. We have been brought up to believe that our consciousness basically resides in our brain and that it doesn't extend outside of our skin or our body. Now, I'm going to say another one of those unbelievable statements. In actuality, it actually does. Everything that you see in your environment is you. And maybe the easiest way to understand that is light comes into your eyes that's reflected off these other objects and other people, and sounds come into your ears in the same manner. And even though you may think that the sound waves and light waves are not you, or that the other people are not you, in actuality, all of those perceptions, they have to be you because they come into your mind and you're the one that does whatever it is you do with them in your brain. Most of the time, you filter out most of it in order to focus your attention on your task at hand. However, it does not negate the fact that you are your environment. Now, can you at will project your consciousness out of your body? The short answer is yes, but the long answer is you would have to learn how to do that. This is where, once you trust yourself and trust your inner self, you start awakening what would be called inner senses. And one of the inner senses is, now this comes from Jane Roberts, vibrational touch, where you can experience and merge with anything that you see, feel, hear, and actually even imagine. Because if you carry this into your dream world or start applying some of this to the dreams, you'll begin to see that you let your ego down even more in your dreams, and maybe a lot of what I'm explaining becomes more clear if you think of it as a dream. So the point of the second one is I am limitless. Okay. Now, what's another belief that is very helpful? And this belief is you make your own reality. Or I like to change things to a very personal level, so I would say I make my own reality. That belief is one that I would put into my mind, and in the process figure out which ones that I hold that are, shall we say, opposite of that, and those other beliefs I would figure out how to change them. You will be able to change a lot of the old beliefs quickly. One of them methods is just imagining that you're weeding a garden, and all you have to do is the old belief that you recognize, just imagine it that it's a weed and that you just pull it up and throw it on the compost pile, whatever you do. And it's done. Don't give it any more attention. Let's look at some of these beliefs again. The self is not limited. Okay, I already talked about that. I am limitless. There are no boundaries or separations of the self. And I mentioned that. My power is now. I live in a safe universe. I make my own reality. I trust my inner self. So you can see there is things to do to change yourself, and that will help you convince yourself that yes, you are the authority, you have the inexhaustible power and knowledge within you in order to deal with all of your challenges, okay? I changed the name of problems and conflicts to challenges, and all challenges contain within them solutions. And I change a lot of my thinking as it occurs. I change it in order to simplify my ability to deal with it. And semantics turns out to be a very important aspect of how we perceive. For example, our concept of time is linear, and this is what we accepted as we chose to be born into this world. There were some root assumptions, R-O-O-T, root assumptions, and that is basically that time is a series of moments, and that we live in space, what we would call three dimensions, or if you want to call time the fourth dimension, you can. It's since, as far as quantum mechanics has gone, has been connected with space, and it is space-time now. And just that little change should clue you in. Anomalies are important. Science changes, okay? They may be telling you factually, this is the way it is right now. However, you can be assured that in 100 years, that is not going to be true, okay? Not in the same sense. There'll either be more discernment or a completely different theory or way of looking at the world. And the whole bottom line is this: you get to choose how you live your life. You, overall, even though you're with people a lot, you're inside your own head and you are your best friend all the time. So you want to love yourself. You want to create an aspect or many, many aspects of yourself that you love. I was able to do this by emulating all of the good that I saw in other people. And then by doing that, and it's not easy because I had and still do have faults and weaknesses that need work. It's just that by imitating what I consider positive qualities, it has helped me. One of those is I always wanted to learn how to speak spontaneously and extemporaneously, so that anywhere, anytime, I would be able to get up and basically be a public speaker. Well, that takes a lot of effort and belief and skill and confidence, and plus then of course you have to have a lot of knowledge. What is it you're going to talk about? So I focused on reality creation because that's been my forte, and I wanted to get the basics down first because I knew that if I could figure out reality creation, everything else would be easy after that, if you get my drift. Okay, well, that's about the amount I'm going to tell you now. There's many ways to help yourself. I'm sure you've looked at a lot of books and things like that. I do want to mention that what is called disruptors are helpful, and that is little innocuous things that aren't going to hurt anybody, but you do them in order to change and get used to change. Put your belt on in the different direction. Drive to work in a different way. You can think of hundreds of these little things that you do throughout the day, and change them, sometimes on purpose, sometimes when you get an impulse to do so. And that's where we're going with this, is you want to learn to strengthen your connection with your inner self. And true strength is the ability to have your outer self and your inner self connected. Okay? And so many inventions and important, shall we say, challenges have been solved by people dreaming the solutions, okay? And this is true. I haven't even begun to get into the dream world. However, that is an important aspect of all of this. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed what I would consider maybe a mind expansion discussion. And remember, the talk was over right at the beginning. My only only message is you have all the answers. Okay? Depend on yourself. Figure it out for yourself. And enjoy your journey. And I usually just say happy trails and good luck. All right, bye-bye.